Plano, Texas, just outside of Dallas. And I tell you what, I love the chat. So as we go through this, I'm going to ask questions. If you have a question, just chat it in and I will do my best to cover it as we go through. But I have a question right out of the gate. How many of you have either read a Zig Ziglar book or maybe heard Zig Ziglar live or on a YouTube or whatever? And if you know the name of the book, type it in. And if you saw Zig Ziglar live, mention the date and the city. Okay, so Bob says on CD. Bruce says, see you at the top. Somebody earlier mentioned Yazoo City, so I know you've been listening to Zig. 1977 for the book. That's right after it came out. Hey, Robin, CD. Plenty of audios. See a lot of CDs. Anybody do a cassette tape back in the day? All right. New to this. Hey, Michael. Well, hopefully you'll enjoy some of this. Heard and borrowed since. Love that. CDC at the top. Check up from the neck up. That's right. Dad used to say we all need a checkup from the neck up to prevent hardening of the attitudes and eliminate the stinking thinking. So that's why we're here. Success for Dummies. What a great book. You know, when that book came out, that was the all-time best-selling dummies book when it first launched out there. Biscuits, Fleas, and Pump Handles. You know, that was the original name of the book, See at the Top. And that came out, you know, about a year before the book See the Top did. So that goes back in time. It's also maybe Dad's most famous speech. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We've got a lot to cover. My name is Tom Ziglar. I'm the CEO of Zig Ziglar. And what we do is we spread hope and encouragement. And so what I wanted to do today was to bring you some tips, some ideas, some things that you can use in your life right now that will give you some hope and encouragement, will allow you to prosper in this pandemic. And so one of the things that I love about the way I was raised and what we teach is that when things happen, we have a choice. We have a choice of how we can view it. And so there's all these problems that are going on in the world right now as a result of the COVID-19. And so what I want you to start thinking about is let's turn these problems into possibilities. And as I was thinking about this situation, I started thinking if Zig Ziglar were alive, my father, who impacted over 250 million people in his life, and he wrote 45 different books, just an amazing thing, the amount of influence that he had. I started thinking, if Dad was alive, what would he say about this pandemic? And out of that came the book Stronger. Now, if you stick with us through the end, you're going to see a gift that we're going to give everybody, and it's going to be a download of the Stronger book. So you're seeing what it kind of looks like. It's an action guide, and I wrote it about 4 weeks into the pandemic just to help people deal with the situation, because there's a lot of things going on out there. And this will be a gift to you. So stick with us. Here is the quote that if Dad were here today, he would probably anchor his philosophy, his perception of what's going on. And I want to share this with you. Expect the best, prepare for the worst, and maximize what comes. And you know what? This is a great quote, and I'm going to break it down for you right now. So what does expect the best mean? It means this. It means that when we wake up in the morning, we've got to have that attitude of gratitude. We've literally got to look at the world thinking, you know what? It might have been a tough road, but today's going to be better. Today's the day. And we have that attitude that lifts other people up, and the tone of our voice and the smile in our eyes and our face. And when we have this attitude, this expect the best outlook, when we touch other people, when we have conversations with other people, just our tone and just our enthusiasm, it will lift their spirits. And so why do we want to do this? Well, we know that medically, when our spirits are lifted, it boosts our immune system. And my goodness, that's what we need right now. The second part of this is prepare for the worst. So what does that mean? Well, let me just tell you something. We need to create margin in our life now more than ever. So prepare for the worst can go into different areas of life. in our health and in our physical life, what does this mean? It means we need to exercise. We need to eat right. We need to get plenty of sleep. We need to make sure that we're handling the stress. We're doing all the things to make ourselves as healthy as possible. We need every edge that we can get. In our business, what we do is we look into the future of our business and we say, what happens if this thing takes longer than we want it to? So what kind of decisions can we make today that will give us margin, that will allow us to outlast this thing, to stand tall in the furnace, to make an impact of those who come? And then we've got to maximize what comes. And this can happen in our personal life and in our professional life. So I want to ask a question. Just type into the chat. Can you give something you don't have? Can you give something you don't have? Just type in it. No, you can't. Absolutely not. You can't. And so let me ask another question. How many of you have had a text, a direct message, an email, a phone call, maybe in the middle of the night even, of somebody who you care about, a friend, a coworker, a family member, and they are at their rope, at the end of the rope. They're really having a tough time. They're not, and they reach out to you and they say, hey, can I talk to you? I'm really having a difficult time. Anybody had that? If that's you, just type in yes, for sure. Yeah. Okay. I think we all have, if we're humans, right? And I believe that maybe our greatest purpose in life is to love and support other people during their hard times. And so here's the thing. If we don't have margin, right? If we don't have the energy, if we don't have the attitude, how can we help them? If somebody's calling you because they're through a rough spot, how can you lift them up and encourage them if you're not yourself having this type of outlook? It's the most fundamental, basic, common sense approach to everything. Hey, I'm going to have a great attitude. I know it's going to get better. We've been through hard times before. We can do it again. But you know what? I'm not going to let luck make me through this, right? I'm going to do the work to prepare for the worst, to get in good shape, and then whatever comes my way. You might have a business client or a prospect call you up. Hey, we're struggling. We don't know what to do next. You've helped me in the past. What can you do? That's when you roll up your sleeves with the right attitude and help them. So what does all this mean? It means this. When we choose the right input, we have taken the most important step in determining the right outcome. Hey, the bottom line is when we associate with the right kind of people, when we listen and read the right kind of information, when we stay off of anti-social media, when we're careful about the content of the news and the quantity of the information that comes in that's negative, and we focus on the things that are going to help us help other people, that's when we go to the next level. And we want to do this because of legacy. So I just want to ask a big question. If you agree with this, if this is something you want, just type in the word legacy in all caps. How many of you want to leave a legacy? How many of you want to have an impact that ripples through eternity? Yeah. Well, we have a saying, okay, in the US, we talk about the greatest generation in the United States, the greatest generation. And they talk about that it was the men and women who went and fought in World War II, right? Because not only did we win the war, but at the same time, these men and women came home, and the biggest economic boom in the history of the world happened when they went to work and they got back home. That's why they were called the greatest generation. But you know what? One of my good friends, his name is Andy Andrews. He said this. He says they weren't the greatest generation. The greatest generation were the parents of the men and women who fought in World War II. You see, think about it. They were raised up in the Great Depression. They didn't have much, but they had each other. They had principles and values. When they went to war, in the beginning, it was against a superior fighting force with better equipment, better just about everything. And yet, because they had each other, they had the principles and values, they had the grit, the realization that if we stuck together, we can win this thing. You see, that's what legacy is. Legacy is intentionally preparing those you love to grow through life's most difficult challenges. So you know what? This is what I'm thinking. Maybe right now, everybody who's on here, all 100 of us, more than that are on here right now, maybe our opportunity, our possibility is we are breathing the necessary ingredients into the next generations so that they can come out and have an amazing impact. And it has to do with how we handle this situation. I was reading a great book by Nassim Taleb. It's called Anti-Fragile. And this is a quality that I love, anti-fragility. And so let me talk about this for a second. It's hard to explain, but the way the author explains it is he says this: anti-fragile is the opposite of fragile. So what does that mean? We don't want to be fragile. We don't want to be easily broken. We don't, we don't want to wither at just harsh words, right? We want to be anti-fragile. So what is the definition of anti-fragile? Anti-fragile is this concept. It's this idea. It's a property of systems that increase, that allows us to thrive as a result of the stressors, the shocks, the volatility, the noise, the mistakes, the faults, the attacks, or the failures. What am I saying here? I'm saying that when things come against us, which is what's happening right now, let's face it, our business life has turned upside down. We're a little nervous about how we socialize. We're not sure how long that this economic situation is going to last. We all wonder, when are we going to get a cure or a vaccine or a treatment that we can count on so that the world can go back to normal? We don't know that. But here's the reality. If we look at all these stressors, if we look at all these things that come against us and realize that they're making us stronger, then that changes our reality. You see, everybody who's had an incredible success in their life, when you look at their life, there's usually something that they've had to overcome. That's the idea of being anti-fragile. It's the idea of expect the best, prepare for the worst, maximize what comes. And what's interesting is that we know that we are created this way. I mean, think about this. If we want to build our muscles, what do? We lift weights. And those weights, as we lift them, it tears our muscle fibers down, right? The stress, the pressure of that tears them down. But you know what they do? They grow back stronger. And so I want you to start adopting everything that's coming against you. It's making you stronger. And for women, a lot of times women will go to the doctor. They hit the age of menopause, and the doctor will say, hey, wait a second. We don't want your bones to lose their strength, right? You're in menopause. So they will recommend weight training for women. And why is that? The pressure, the weight, the stress on the bones does what? It makes them stronger. And so this stronger mindset, it's psychological, it's medical, it's scientific. But I want to go to a different area. As many of you know, my father, Ziglar, was a Christian. I'm a Christian. And so it goes into the spiritual realm. Dad's life verse was Romans 8:28. And we know that all things, that God causes all things to work together for good. I mean, think about that. What a promise that we have. We may not understand what's going on, and believe me, if I could wish this away, I would. My life verse, which is an interesting one, is James 1:2-3. I don't know why I picked this, because when I was 12, I'll just be honest, I'd never had a trial of significance. And yet, look at this. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing the testing of your faith produces endurance. So literally, when we come against the opposition, when things beat us down beyond our control, our internal response should be, you know what? Fantastic. I'm getting stronger. There's another version that says, consider it a sheer gift. I'm having a hard time right now doing that. But think about this. When we have tests and they come at us from all sides, it allows us to have a greater influence in the lives of those that we love and care about as they watch us lead by example. And that's what legacy is all about. And we have this amazing promise. And the promise is, hey, you know what? There's going to be trouble. It's guaranteed. That's just the way the world is. But we can overcome that. So I want you to think about this mindset of how we go out every day. And we understand that it's not guaranteed to be easy. But the things in life that are worth it aren't easy. And how we live through them and grow through them. Remember, legacy is preparing those you love, not to go through the furnace, but to grow through the furnace. It's like this. It's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset says, you know what? There's nothing I can do about it. I am what I am. The gifts and talents that I had, they can't be improved. So if something gets hard, I go look for something that's easy. You know what these kind of people are? They give up. They quit. They don't understand that they have a choice. The choice is that I can grow. A growth mindset says, man, every day is about learning. Every day is about focusing on solutions, not problems. And so the Stronger Action Guide, which you'll get a gift in, gives you all these. I'm gonna run through this so that you can see these. One of the things that I love is daily affirmations. And so we created a Stronger daily affirmation. But I just want to ask everybody a question. See what you have to say about this. What is the most powerful story in the world? Just type it in. What do you think it is? What's the most powerful story in the world? The Bible, mine, who else? Just jump in. The resurrection, the Bible, your own. The death and resurrection, I love it. Star Wars, I love that. Creation, the tortoise and the hare. Okay, let me tell you this. The most powerful story in the world is the story you tell yourself. Okay? It's the story you tell yourself. Now, I'll give you an example. One of my good friends, his name is Seth Godin. He's a marketing guru, and he's done so much stuff. And he talks about Ambien. Anybody here familiar with Ambien? Ambien is a sleep drug, a sleep medication. In fact, I just want to cure. Does anybody, if you've had an experience with Ambien, just type in the word Ambien. So he talks about this story, and the reason it hit home is I was down in I was at a sales call in Houston, Texas, and I walk in, and the salesman or the sales VP of this company, he had his arm, his whole arm was in a sling, and I said, "What happened to you?" And he said, "Well," he said, "I take Ambien to help me sleep, and I forgot I took my pill." And he said, "I took another one, and then in the middle of the night," he said, "I slept walked, and I walked into my swimming pool, and the swimming pool was empty. And so he fell into an empty swimming pool, and he said, I broke my shoulder." Now think about that. That was a side effect of Ambien. And so here's the thing. Ambien helps you sleep. Okay. That's why people take it. So and it has all kinds of side effects. I mean, people get up in the middle of the night, they sleep cook, they sleepwalk, people mow their yards in the middle of the night with this Ambien. Does anybody want to guess how many extra minutes of sleep that you get because you take Ambien? Anybody, just type in, just chat in. Bob says 15. Paulina says none. David says none. 30. All right, well, they did all the sleep studies where they hook up the brain thing and they check your brain waves. 17 minutes. So here's the deal. You've got this medication that's very powerful. It has all these side effects, and you get 17 extra minutes because you take it. So why do people love Ambien? I'll tell you why. It's an amnesiac. And so what does that mean? It means this. It means that when you take your Ambien and go to sleep, and then 10 hours later, you get up out of bed and you think this, wow, I don't remember anything. I must have slept all night. And so what happens? You operate and act as if you slept all night. So what does that mean? Even though the video camera shows you're up all night cooking and doing stuff and you only got a few more minutes of sleep because you took it, you told yourself, I slept 10 hours. And then you acted like you felt fantastic. And so this is the science behind affirmations. And you're going to get this affirmation in your remote action guide when you get that. But here's the thing. It's really simple. I'm getting stronger and stronger every day in every way. I'm expecting the best, preparing for the worst, and maximizing what comes. I commit to daily growing and learning in every area of my life. When we tell ourselves these statements, then we are entering into a new world. I already have every quality of success inside of me, and I'm daily recognizing, claiming, developing, and using them. We already have the ingredients of what we need to be successful, to go and do whatever we're called to do. We've just got to recognize, claim, develop, and use it. I'm solution focused, not problem centered. Dad said this: it's not negative to identify a problem. It's only negative if you stay focused on the problem. We've got to be focused on the solution. I believe James 1, 2, and 3, and I know that that hardships and trials, they make me stronger. I have hope in the future. I am courageous standing in the furnace of life because I know I'm not alone. And I know that those I love are encouraged and lifted up. If we can't do it for ourselves, we got to do it for those around us. Yes, I'm getting stronger and stronger every day in every way. And I know that God is perfectly positioning me to fulfill my life's purpose. And in order to do that, I am getting stronger and stronger every day in every way. So that is an affirmation. Step number 3 in the action guide. This is a fantastic tip. And it is about, how do we start our day? What is it that we do to make sure that our day is started in the right way and we can go out and have an impact? The first thing I'm going to suggest, if you don't do this practice, then you can start small. And you want to find a distraction-free place, a place where you can go and you're not going to be interrupted. And you've got to create the time for it. So the perfect start for me is getting up earlier than I normally do. So whatever time you get up, if you can carve out some time in that, fantastic. If your morning is rushed, you're going to want to get up a little bit earlier. This is what I recommend. The first thing that you want to do in your perfect start is, I call it the 2 chairs. Now, I learned this from Bob Bodine, and this is a powerful way to get right. Now, I will be honest with you. I do get my coffee. So I wake up in the morning, I make the trip to the coffee pot, turn that on, get that going. And then I have the 11-second commute to my office, right? Because working at home. And I'll come into my office, which is a distraction-free place, and I have 2 chairs. And here's how I started. 1 chair is for me, and 1 chair is for God. And I just asked 3 questions. Hey, God, do you know what's going on? Well, of course, he's God. Number 2, God, are you big enough to handle this? Well, absolutely. Okay. 3rd question, God, what's the plan? Now, why am I doing this? Because I want to get the download, right? I want to listen. And this is only 5 minutes. 4.5 minutes is listening. And I'm doing this because I'm preparing. And then the next 20 minutes, you can read scripture, you can do a devotional, you can read inspirational reading, meditation, whatever your faith life is. Just take 20 minutes. Just take 20 minutes of reflection and gratitude, leading something, learning something. Hey, Marion, absolutely. When we start off our day with the right mindset, the right input that allows us, here's a Zig secret. Write this down. Somebody asked me one time, they said, what was Zig Ziglar's number 1 key? What is it that he did that made him Zig Ziglar? And here is the simple answer. Every day, the first 2 to 3 hours of the day, he would get up, he would read and study something. It could be the Bible, it could be a great book, it could be educational, it could be listening to something. He would study that, read it, then he would internalize and simplify it so that he could share it with someone else for their benefit. If you want a totally different life in a very short amount of time, spend 5 minutes a day learning something new, internalizing and simplifying, and then sharing it with someone else. Now, what do I mean share it with someone else? Well, this is what I would love for everybody here to do. If you learn something in this webinar, jot it down, think about it. It only takes a minute. and then share it with somebody you love. Now imagine if you set a goal to do that every day, how much different you would be, because you would be focused on helping other people to be, do, and have more. So that's step number 2. Step number 3, journaling. Man, write your thoughts down. Get them out. Put them down on paper. A lot of times I will write things in the margin of the books that I'm reading. And by the way, when you find a great book, here's another tip for you. This is a legacy tip. When you find a book that develops you, that helps you grow, that has wisdom in it, one of the things that I like to do is I write notes in the margin, and I will write the note to either my wife or my daughter. And my daughter's name is Alexandra. And I'll say, Alexandra, wow, this author, what they're talking about right here, it reminds me of you. You have this quality, and I love and appreciate that in you. And when I do that, what I've done is I've left a marker, right? And so sometimes the journaling can be just in a normal journal. Sometimes it can be in your day planner or whatever that is. And sometimes your journaling can be in the margin of one of the books that you're doing. Why are we doing this? Why am I telling this? Because we've got to be intentional. In a time like this, for such a time as this, when all the stress and all the pressure of the world is on us, what are we doing proactively to grow ourselves? And is there anything better than growing ourselves while we help others to grow? Number 4, take 10 minutes. 10 minutes of planning. And we have at Ziglar, we have the performance planner. And this is what we do every day to work in our goals, right? It's more than just a day timer where we're scheduling our appointments. What we're really talking about are these are the 4 or 5 objectives that I want to accomplish that are going to take me closer to my end goal, my why in life. And we write them down and we review them. And we do that every single day. And the reason is, Dad had a great quote. He said, if you don't have a target, you'll hit it every time, right? So if you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. We got to aim at something. So let's be intentional about that. And then there's the mental model. And I do this. So when I have an appointment with somebody, when I have a webinar, when I have a presentation, I will role play in my mind what I need to be prepared for. And so I will think about the audience. I'll say, okay, who's going to be there? Where are they from? What is it that they're hoping to learn? What is it, what kind of questions might I receive? And by the way, anytime you have a question along the way, just type it in and we're going to do some Q&A at the end. And the reason I do the mental model, and this is neuro brain science, by the way, and I'll only spend a minute. So if I have an appointment or a call with someone, I will think for a minute, okay, what's the objective of the call? What questions would they have? How can I benefit them? What are the likely results? Who else will be involved? What other information do I need? And I just go through that. And what it does is it creates slots in your mind so that when you actually have the call, when you actually do the presentation, when you actually are with the people, you have more clarity and you're better able to handle that. And then the last piece of the perfect start is discover and look for the one thing you want to get done. What's the one most important thing that you can do that will lift and raise up everything else? And I block about 45 minutes for that. So it could be writing, it could be preparing for a speech, something like that. So that's number 3. And the perfect start, I'm just curious, does anybody practice some version of this? How many of you have an intentional start to the day? If you do that, then just type it in, or yes, Bob says yes. And if you do that, just type in on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of it is it change your life? If you do this on a regular basis, so there's an 8, there's a 10, there's a 10. Yeah, Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod is fantastic. Yeah, it's a game changer. Now, I will usually spend 2 to 3 hours in this, at least 2. But you know what? I didn't start this way. Zig Ziglar didn't start this way. So only 10 minutes. That's all you need. So here's a quick version. If you only got 10 minutes, what are the 3 things that you're going to focus on for the day? Then the next 3 minutes, what are the, just do an affirmation. Just lift yourself up. And then finally, the last is what are the major goals or problems to solve that you're going to get on, right? List them out. Start with 10 minutes. So that's the third tip. The fourth, here's a question. How many of you have ever, in the last 4 months, have woken up in the middle of the night, anxious, worried, stressed, kind of that sense of overwhelm? Anybody had that? Yeah, type it in if you are. How about during the middle of the day, all of a sudden you'll be like, oh man, what's going to happen? I'm not sure about this. And, we had these plans and I don't even know how to prepare. Yeah. And so what I did here is, here's a strategy. I call it the middle of the night wake up call, but you can use it at any time. Here's the strategy of how to get your mind from that track, that spiral of doom and gloom, and just kind of reset. And let me walk through that. And the details are in the action guide. So it's kind of like the perfect start. You find that distraction-free place. Okay, here's a question. Would it be a good idea to identify the next actions on the big task and set them as a plan? Some big tasks are over-facing. Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into kind of a goal-setting, problem-solving system. That's step number 5. I'm going to share that with you. And so, yeah, I'm going to give you the formula for attacking that and creating an action plan. All right. Yeah. And so, there's just a little note, put all the chats to all attendees and panelists so you can see the question. And a lot of times I'll read it out. So there we go. So the first thing is, God, we got to have this quiet. Okay. We wake up in the middle of the night. Now for me, it's 3 a.m. That's my middle of the night. And I've probably had that 3 or 4 times in the last 4 months. And what do? Okay. I know something's in there and I just need to deal with it. So I get up, I come into my office. Step number 2 is I write a gratitude list. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to change the state of our brain. We're trying to change the state of our mindset. And so for 5 to 10 minutes, I write down everything I'm grateful for. I mean, I've got a grandpuppy. My daughter brings Charlie over like 4 or 5 times a week. And I'm so grateful for that, the energy, the excitement. And you know what? I'm grateful for my wife and my house. And I go down the list. The longer the gratitude list, the better. And what are we doing? Here's the reality. Gratitude and fear and anxiety and worry, they can't really exist in the same place at the same time. It's kind of like faith and fear can't be in the same place at the same time, but gratitude's a little bit more concrete because we can relive those memories. So you write that list out. And then I do the 2 chairs, right? I want God. I want the higher power to download to me. We already talked about that. And then the next step is a victory list. A victory list. Yeah, somebody writes in, distraction-free environment is the most challenging. It might be that you just need headphones and you turn your chair facing to where things don't come into your eye. You put your phone over to the side, right? So it's not going off. Your computer is closed. You just got a journal out. So what do I mean by a victory list? You go back in time and you think about, okay, years ago in lower school, I accomplished this and I got my first job and I won that deal and I put together a relationship and I ran a half marathon or whatever it is. You just write the victory list. So why are we doing this? So think about it. You're waking up with anxious, you're a little bit overwhelmed, you're not sure what to do. And so we're focusing on gratitude. We're getting our state and our mental state right. And then we're writing down our accomplishments. Why? We're telling ourselves, look, I've done it before. I can do it again. I've done it before. I can do it again. So that's why we create the victory list. And then we identify the problem. We write it down, right? We get real specific. And I'm going to go through a 7-step problem solving system in just a minute. That's step number 5. We identify the problem, we write it down, we get clarity on the problem. This is what we're going after. In other words, we're taking all the things that are floating around in our brain and we identify the problem. Sometimes it might be 5 or 6 problems that we write down. And now once we write down the problem, we get real specific on the action. Now, so what's step number 6? Well, let me go back. Let me just talk about the problem here real quick. When we identify the problem and we do the 7-step action plan, which I'm going to go into, what we're doing is this. We're dividing the problem into 2 categories, okay? One category is what can I do? And so we're going to take ownership of every action, everything that we can do, everything that we can learn, all the people who we can engage to help solve the problem. And we're going to write that down. And then there's things that we have no control over. So let me give you an example. Right now we got the COVID-19. Do I have any power over COVID-19? No. So I can't really worry about it, right? What I can do is say, hey, you know what? At Ziglar, we're going to do all kinds of training online. At Ziglar, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reach out to our clients and our family and our best, and I'm going to have more contact. I'm going to have more interaction. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to learn how to do the best Zoom meeting possible. You see, those are things I have control over. But you know what I don't have control over? When we can get together again because of COVID-19. And so that's where once we identify all that, that's where, you know what, COVID-19, I got to turn it over. Anything beyond my control, for me, I give it to God. Okay, that's what I do. For you, if you're not, if you're not inclined that way, you just take it to the side and you say, hey, that's not something I can have any control over. All I control. Dad said this. Zig Ziglar said this. It's not what happens to you in life that's the most important thing. It's how you handle what happens to you. And so you get solution focused on what you can control, and then you turn the rest of it. And then if you can, you go back to sleep. Now, I'll be honest, if I get up at 3 with this, it's usually 5 or 5:30 before I've got it worked out. And then I'm revved up because I'm in the action plan stage, right? I'm getting after it. Step number 5, the 7-step problem solving system. And I want to ask everybody, how many of you are familiar with goal setting? How many of you are familiar with goal setting? Has anybody here used the Ziglar goal setting system? I'm just curious. If you've used the Ziglar goal setting system, just type in Ziglar. No, not so far. That's fine. Okay, we got a couple who have the GROW model. Yeah. Okay, so I want to give you an interesting statistic, but I want to do it after I ask this question. So this is kind of we'll call this a chat poll. So there's basically 2 types of people in the world. There are people who love the to-do list. They love solving problems. In fact, they'll get up in the morning and they'll get their sheet of paper out and they'll write down all the to-dos for the day. And a lot of times the to-do is really, I got to solve this problem, I got to solve this problem, I got to solve this problem. And then there's another group of people who they get up in the morning and they think about the future. They think about what they want to be, do, or have, their dreams and goals. And they write down their goals, or they actually already have their goals written down. And they go and they start revisiting, what can I do to get closer to achieving my goal? Neither one of them are right or wrong, okay? But I'm just curious, if you are a to-do person, like you like the list, if that gets you excited, checking the list off, I just want you to type in list, okay? If you are a goals person, and that's what gets you motivated, type in the word goal. We got list, goal, list, both. Yeah, a lot of people are both. Goals, both. Okay. When they do the study on this, did you know that 80% of the population is list-oriented problem solving? How many of you list-oriented people have ever felt guilty for not getting excited about goals? Anybody? It's like, man, I just want to get things done. Don't feel guilty anymore. Okay. I'm going to show you something. You see, problem solving and goal setting are two sides of the same coin. The very way you solve a problem is the same way you achieve a goal. And so for those of you who are blessed and you love goal setting and you're all into it, man, that's fantastic. But guess what? Your problem solving friends, they just have a different perception of it. It's actually the same thing. And so what I want to do is share with you the Ziglar 7-step problem solving system. And I'm going to do a mind shift on you. I'm going to show you how you can use this system to either solve a problem or achieve a goal. So you ready for this? Identify the problem you want to solve. That's number one. What is the problem you want to solve? Well, a problem solver, let's just say that you want to weigh 180 pounds, but you weigh 200 pounds, okay? So you might write it down as, my problem is I weigh 20 pounds too much. That's the way a problem solver looks at it. A goal setter says this, I want to weigh 180 pounds, right? So what's the thing? They both want the same thing. They both want to get rid of 20 pounds. One of them looks at it as, hey, I'm going to enjoy weighing 180. Another one looks at it as, I'm going to enjoy getting rid of those 20 pounds. You see the difference there? But it's not that big of a difference. So step one is you got to have clarity on it. Step number two, list the benefits of solving the problem. Or list the benefits of achieving the goal. Now here, this one is important. This step gets overlooked all the time. The reality is that the more benefits we can put down on this, whether the benefit of solving the problem or the benefit of achieving the goal, whichever way you look at it, the more benefits that you write down, the more likely you are to stick with it. So if you say, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, that's my problem, and my benefit is I'm going to be healthier, and that's all you put down. Well, okay, when the cheesecake cart rolls by, guess what you're going to be doing? You're going to be grabbing the cheesecake. So we need to not do that, okay? So what do you write down? Hey, I'm going to be able to buy new clothes. I'm going to look better on the beach. I'm going to be able to chase my grandkids. I'm going to have less medical care costs. I'm going to have more energy and clarity when I meet with other people. I'm going to have more confidence. And you write that list as long as you can. Because here's the reality. The more benefits with following through on something, the more likely you are to follow through. List number three, the major obstacles and mountains to climb to solve this problem or achieve this goal. Let me just tell you something. When it comes to weight loss, popcorn is a big obstacle for me. If we have popcorn in the house, it's gone. I eat it. And so I have to get with my wife. Hey, don't bring any popcorn home. So you think of the mountains and obstacles. What's going to keep you from getting there? Far too many people. We had the question earlier about how do we do the plans, okay? This is a planning system. We've got to identify what's likely to derail us before we get started so we can build in what it is that we are going to do to overcome that obstacle. Number four, identify the skills and knowledge required to solve this problem. What do you need to learn? What skills and knowledge do you need to achieve this goal? I mean, do you need to come to webinars like this? Do you need to read a book? Do you need to go get a coach or an expert? What are the things that you need to acquire? And who are you going to work with? Individuals, groups, and companies. I'll just give you an example. I know you guys had Bob Tiede on recently. Bob's a great friend of mine. He's one of my mentors. I was having breakfast with him a couple of years ago, and he says, "Tom, how are you doing?" And I said, "Bob, man, I'm not doing so good." He goes, "What's going on?" I said, "I'm overwhelmed." Right? So here's a mentor, right? And I'm sharing my problem with him. He goes, "Well, what do you mean you're overwhelmed?" And I said, "Well, people will bring me a good idea and my shoulders will slump because I know it's a good idea, but I have no capacity. I have no extra bandwidth. I have no margin to do the good idea. And so I get upset because I can't follow through. He said, Tom, you're asking yourself the wrong question. I said, what do you mean? He said, Tom, you're asking yourself, how do I do this? He says, Tom, that's the wrong question. The question should be, who should do this? In other words, a lot of times we take ownership of all the opportunities, all the problems, everything's that comes to us, and we think it's our responsibility. And Bob's like, wait a second, you got friends, you've got coworkers, you've got contacts who are probably better suited to solve that problem than you are, or to go out and make that idea a reality. And you know what? He's right. And that's why getting together in a group like this is so amazing, because you network and you can help each other. So think about this. Who are the groups and individuals when you have a great idea who can help you go to the next level? Okay, number 6, create the plan of action to solve this problem. This is what most people skip to immediately, right? If you want to lose the weight, you know that's the problem. Then you start saying, well, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, or I'm going to do walking or jogging, and I'm going to eat this and all that. This is where you get detailed into that. And then you write down the completion date. Golly, when we do this, we got to write down the completion date. And so that is it. That is the 7-step goal setting, problem solving system. And by the way, when you get your action guide, if you choose to go and get that, it's an editable document. So you can go in and you can write it all right here. And so that's it. I'm open now for Q&A. It's been awesome. I hope this was beneficial and enjoyable. And I wanted to kind of give you mindset. I wanted to give you some tools that you can use to take action on, and then hopefully inspire you to go and do what you need to do.
Tom, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. We'll open the floor to some questions. Please put your questions in the Q&A if you can. We have some questions already been put in the chat, but if you could put your questions in the Q&A, it'd be easier for me to and Tom to see. So one question that's already there, Tom, is what's on your top book reading list at the moment?
Yeah, there's a couple. One of my good friends is Rabbi Daniel Lapin. He wrote Thou Shalt Prosper and Business Secrets of the Bible. I love that. Bob Bodine, who I mentioned, he wrote the book 2 Chairs. And he also wrote The Power of Who. And it's about relationships. And those are 2 fantastic books from Bob as well. Recently, I'm reading kind of an older book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. So I really study the way our mind works. And that's, Carol is the one, Dr. Dweck is the one who talked about the fixed mindset versus the growth. Also, Dr. Carolyn Leaf, just the amazing power that we have to take a situation in our life and change it, right? So those are just a few.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Another question in from Bruce. How do you keep strong on your long-term goals?
So Bruce, there's 2 things here. First off is there's a bunch of things, but these are the 2 or 3 that I do. You've got to write that goal down in detail in the 7 steps that we just showed. And that benefits list has to be substantial. Because a lot of times in a long-term goal, the benefit is delayed, right? We don't really see it. And then once we know what that goal is, I like to identify the why behind the why. So let's just say your goal is a lake house or a vacation home or something like that. Well, why do you want it? Well, usually it's so that you can do life with those you love. Your kids and grandkids can come, your friends can come, your spouse can be there. And so if we got real clarity on what our why is, number 2 is you got to keep it in front of you every day. Okay. You've got to, have a habit, a ritual, something that's built in to where you can see that visible thing on a daily basis. And number 3 is you got to break that long-term big goal into steps. So it could be a 5 or a 10-year goal, but you want to break it down into what can I do in the next 90 days? How am I moving towards it?
Cool. Thank you, Tom. We appreciate that. Got some questions coming in. Marion asks, what do you say when people say, I don't have time to set myself up for the day, to plan, to think? How do we help people see the value of something they've never done before so that they got time to plan and to learn?
Oh my goodness. That's like the most common objection. Um, and I'll say, okay, awesome. Well, is there anything that you want to achieve in your life? Um, and usually they'll say, yeah, right. They want a promotion. They want to get out of debt. They want more education. And then I'll ask them, or maybe they have a project. Maybe they want to start a business. And I go, well, what would that mean to you um, if you achieved it? And they'll tell you, man, that'd be amazing. That my life would be completely different. Um, and so if I said, hey, put a dollar value on it. So let's just say that they said it's worth $10,000. I'm just making it easy. 10,000 pounds, 10,000 euros, $10,000, whatever it is. I say, well, it's been proven that if you work on your goal every day, specifically if you do it at the beginning of the day, you're more likely to achieve it. Would you be willing to commit to that? And they'll say, no, I don't have the time. So they have this great thing that's going to be at this value, but they won't do it. So then I flip it on them and I say, look, I'll be your personal coach. I tell you what, here's what we do. You give me $10,000 and then I'm going to text you every day. And then you just reply back with a yes or a no. Yes or a no. Did I get up did I work on my goals first thing in the morning? And then I'll answer any goals questions, anything you want. And then at the end of the 90 days, if you've done that every day, I'll give you your $10,000 back. Will you do that? You know how many people say yes? Oh yeah, I'll do it. Right? Well, why would you do it? Well, I don't want to lose the 10,000 because the deal is if you don't text me back or you don't answer, I get to keep the 10,000. And so I'm putting a little mind shift. Well, why would you already said it's worth 10,000. Why wouldn't you do it? Here's the challenge. People have to, it's the pain and the vision, right? They have to feel the pain before they're willing to go for the vision, and people are comfortable. And so what we got to do is we got to knock them off of that comfortable place so that they can see, hey, it's just a choice. And that's why I recommend don't try to start with an hour a day. Start with 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. We all overestimate what we can do in a short amount of time, and we all underestimate what we can do in a long amount of time. So the 5 minute start is what it is. And then offer to be an accountability partner. And if they still refuse, then it's, well, what time of day will work for you? Will you commit to that? And if they say yes, then say, can I hold you accountable, and see what they do? And usually they're not committed. That's the challenge.
Very true. Thank you, Tom. Solid answer. How do you keep trying to overcome things when you've been failing to overcome a problem habit for many years?
This is a twofold situation. First off, we've got to change our input. And so my question would be is, what type of input are we putting in intentionally that's allowing us? You see, when we have the right input, it changes our thinking. When our thinking changes, our beliefs change. When our beliefs change, our actions change. And when our actions change, our output changes. And so we've got to reprogram our mind. There's actually science that says we can take a traumatic experience, we can take a memory, and we can reform it and recreate it. Scientifically, we know that when we wake up in the morning, every day we've got millions of new brain cells, and they're waiting for us to tell them what to do. And so we've got to be conscious and intentional about the input that we're putting in, because that's the foundation. And then when we start to see the old thinking, the old habit, we've got to literally say, stop it. Until now, that's the way I thought, but I don't think that way anymore. Now I think this, and we get into the affirmation. So that's that. Then the second thing is we need to have confidence in the process far more than the result. Okay. And so we need to be growth mindset oriented. What have I done different? What have I learned today? And we focus on that, because when we start focusing on what we can do, instead of beating ourselves down for, whoops, I slipped again. Whoops, I slipped again. Oh, I didn't do that. I didn't do this. Right. And then we do strategies. I just read a book called Indistractable. I can't remember the author's name, but it's about how to be indistractable. And one of the challenges is there's so much noise in the world. There's so many interruptions that even though we have good intentions and good plans, we get constantly distracted away from it. Well, we can grow in learning how to be indistractable, right? So what is distraction, right? Means no traction. So indistractable means that nothing can keep us from gaining traction. And so we've got to learn those techniques. So it's a combination of the right input and understanding we're focusing on the process.
Fantastic. I hadn't thought about that intractability before. Tom, a question from Paul. What do you do to switch off? You can't be switched on learning 100% of the time.
What do I do to switch off?
Yeah.
Well, it's intentional. At the end of the day, like today, I've got another webinar today. And whenever I'm done with the webinar, my energy's like this. And then I've got an appointment after that. So what I do is I close my laptop. Usually that's when the workday is over. I close my laptop and I say I'm done. And then I make it a point not to check anything for at least an hour, because I gotta zone out. So I don't look at my phone. I don't do that stuff. And we just got to guard our time. It's a learned habit. And for those of you who are addicted to the phone and the next thing, I get it. I've been there too. So that's what I do. And some people, when people would drive home from work, what they would do is they would sit in their car for a second or outside the house for a second. They would take all their worries, all their concerns, and they would leave it on the tree or the mailbox or whatever's right outside where you live, and then come back in.
Cool. Thanks, Tom. Switching off those crazy inputs is a great idea. A question from Bradley. I always get stuck on point 6. Any tips? I always sit there and delay because I'm not sure what I really need to do, because I've never been there before and I don't really know how to get there.
Well, that's the reason. And you know what? We made points 3, 4, and 5 for people like you, okay? Because you've already identified, okay, what's the obstacle I've got to overcome, right? And so so when you're writing your plan out, you can start saying, okay, what are the obstacles? Okay, what strategies am I going to put in place to overcome those obstacles? So in losing weight, for me, having my favorite snacks that aren't so healthy in the house, that's an obstacle. So my plan is get rid of the temptation. Number 2, skills and knowledge I need to acquire. So what don't I know? And that's where I go to reading. I have a quote. It's one of my favorite quotes that I came up with. And it's this: what you feed your mind determines your appetite. Let me say that again. What you feed your mind determines your appetite. So what I would do is I would be real intentional about whatever it is you want to achieve. And I would find some materials, some education, some books on that very subject. And you start reading it constantly. And as you read that stuff, you learn more, and it motivates you to stay with it. When you start reading all about healthy nutrition, like if you were to read 20 minutes a day just on things that make the body run more efficiently and smoothly, make you feel better, cleans out that, you see the health benefits, you start craving those kind of foods. It's really bizarre, but that's what happens. So that's the knowledge that you need. And then the people you need to work with. Get some, if it's, get some friends or some coaches or people who've already been there and done that, and get with them and say, hey, I've got this little plan. What am I missing? And have them fill in the gaps. So 3, 4, and 5 on that system allow you to fill out that. But the biggest one of all is you just got to start, because every day, if you start now, and Dad said this, it's guaranteed the person who won't take the first step will never take the second step. In a goal, you go as far as you can see, and then when you get there, you'll be able to see farther. So don't worry, especially in a big goal, if you have it all worked out before you start, because there's usually a place where you can start.
Great advice. You got to start with the first step. Action gets us going. Tom, it's been amazing. You've blown away an hour. It's been a real experience, a real blast. You've taught me things that I'd not heard before. It's been refreshing. I'm sure everybody has been refreshed by that. There are some free gifts if you follow through and take the survey at the end. And of course, next week we have Kate Turner, who's going to talk more about keeping your team motivated, even if you're having to do it from afar. So come back next Thursday, 11 o'clock for that. But please complete the exit survey when we close the broadcast. You'll get a free Stronger e-workbook from Tom. You'll get the free Persuade ebook from me. And of course, anybody who's completed the survey is also entitled to a chat with me on the phone or Skype or Zoom. Tom, it's been a real blast. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure. Thank you. And goodbye, everybody.